A woman I had never met walked into my shop on a Tuesday afternoon and set a folder on my counter. She did not say hello. She slid it across the steel, lined it up square with the edge the way you do when something inside it is heavy. And she looked at me and said, "Ask your wife what she really does on the days the open houses run late." I did not drop anything. I did not raise my voice. I find slow leaks for a living, and I have learned that the loud ones are almost never the dangerous ones. The dangerous ones are quiet. They run for months behind a wall while everything in front of you looks dry, and the only thing that tells the truth is the meter, spinning when no faucet is open. By the end of this, I would learn that my whole marriage was a slab leak, and I would learn that the woman with the folder had been spinning her own meter for a year, watching her own house run dry, waiting for someone like me to walk in and confirm it. Stay with me on that folder. It comes back at the very end. And what was inside it is not the part that mattered. The part that mattered was who put it there, and what the two of us decided to do about it. I am 47 years old. I run a plumbing shop in a small town in Missouri, the kind of place where the same 6 trucks park outside the same diner every morning, and everybody knows whose dog got loose. My granddad started the shop. My dad ran it after him. The building has my last name on a metal sign that has been repainted 4 times, and the deed to that building has only ever had one family on it. Remember that. It is going to matter more than anything else in this story. I have been married for 19 years, 2 kids, a daughter who is 15 and already taller than her mother, and a son who is 11 and thinks the most interesting thing in the world is my pipe threader. If you are watching this, I would like to know where you are watching from. Leave the name of your town in the comments. It helps me know who is out there listening at the end of a long day, because I know a lot of you are. Let me tell you about the trust first, because without the trust, none of the rest of it lands. I married a woman named Lana when I was 28 and she was 24. She waited tables back then at the diner I just told you about. I used to come in filthy after a sewer job, and she was the only one who never wrinkled her nose at me. She would just pour the coffee and ask if I got it fixed. That is a small thing. It is also the whole reason I fell in love with her. She saw a man come in covered in someone else's worst day, and she treated him like he was clean. I built a life on that. I worked. God, I worked. Plumbing is not a 9-to-5 trade, not when you own the shop. The phone rings at 2 in the morning because a pipe burst in somebody's crawl space and the whole basement is filling. And you go in the snow. You go on Christmas. You go when your own back is screaming. Because that is how the lights stay on. And that is how the mortgage gets paid. And that is how a man keeps his word to his family. For 19 years I told myself that the long hours were love. That every emergency call I took at midnight was me saying, "I love you," in the only language I really knew. I want to be honest with you about something, because if I skip it, the rest of this is not fair. There was a first time. About 6 years ago, I found a string of messages on an old tablet, the kind of messages that do not have an innocent explanation, with a man she had met at the gym. She cried. She said it never went past words. She said she felt invisible, that I was always at work, that she just wanted someone to look at her. And I believed her. And I forgave her, because I loved her and because some part of me thought she was right. I had been gone a lot, so I came home more. I missed jobs to be at dinner. I took her on a trip to the lake we could not really afford. I thought we fixed it. You fix a leak. You are supposed to pressure test the line before you close the wall back up. I closed the wall. I never tested the line. That was my mistake, and I have made peace with it. But I want you to know I made it. Here is where the meter started spinning. It began with her phone. For 19 years, that phone had sat face up on the kitchen counter, on the nightstand, anywhere. Then, one spring, it started living face down. Always face down. And when it buzzed, she would turn it just enough to read it and turn it back, and her thumb learned a new little move. A quick flip and a glance. Like a card player checking a hand she did not want me to see. Then came the realtor thing. Lana had gotten her real estate license 2 years back, part-time, mostly to have something that was hers, and I was glad for it. But that spring, the open houses started running late. Sunday afternoons that used to end at 5 were ending at 8, then 9. There is always an explanation. A buyer who wanted a second walkthrough, paperwork at the brokerage, a late showing in the next county. Every single one of them made sense. That is the thing about a slow leak. Every drop has a reason. It is only when you add up a year of them that you realize the foundation is gone. Then the money. I do the books for the shop. So I notice numbers the way some men notice a strange noise in an engine. 600 here, 400 there. A hotel charge in a town 40 minutes away on a night she told me she was at a closing dinner. When I asked, easy, no edge in my voice, she said the brokerage reimburses her and it all washes out. And it did wash, sort of, if you did not look too hard. I looked a little. I told myself I was being paranoid. A good husband does not go through his wife's accounts. A good husband trusts. There were other things, smaller, that I filed away without knowing I was filing them. The laptop we shared started asking for a password it never used to ask for, and when I needed it for the shop taxes, she suddenly preferred to type it in herself and hand it to me already open. A girl's trip to Branson with 2 friends I had known for years. Except when I ran into one of those friends at the hardware store, she had no idea what trip I was talking about. A new perfume. A gym bag that went to a gym that, when I drove past it one Saturday on a service call, did not have her car in the lot. Every one of these had an answer. The laptop was acting up, the friend was confused, the gym had a back lot. I am a man who finds the one fitting that is weeping out of 40 that are dry. And even I kept handing my wife the benefit of the doubt, because the alternative meant tearing out a wall I had spent 19 years building. That is the cruelty of it. The person who loves you most is the one most willing to ignore the meter. I want to tell you about the night before the folder, because that night is the one I keep. My son had a fever. Nothing scary, just a kid fever. But he is 11, and he wanted his mom. And his mom was at a quote-unquote broker mixer 2 towns over, and her phone was going straight to voicemail. So I sat on the edge of his bed with a cold cloth, and I told him she would be home soon. And I believed it when I said it. And she came home at midnight, smelling like a cologne I do not own. And she kissed his forehead and told him she had been right there the whole time. He was asleep. He did not hear it. But I heard it. I heard my wife lie to a sick child about where his mother had been, and she did it so smooth, so practiced, that I understood in that exact second that I was not the first person she had lied to that day, and I was not even the most important one. I did not say anything. I went down to the shop, which is what I do when my head is loud, and I sat in the dark with the smell of pipe dope and cut copper, and I did not cry and I did not punch the wall. I just got very still. The kind of still I get right before I find the leak everybody else has been chasing for a week. The next afternoon, the woman walked in with the folder. Her name was Diane. She was married to a man named Trent who ran a real estate brokerage. The same brokerage that held my wife's license. Diane did not cry either. She had done her crying. She told me, about a year ago, when she first started to understand. She had spent that year quietly building something, because she had 2 kids of her own and a business she had helped grow from nothing. And she was not going to blow up her whole life on a feeling. She wanted proof. By the time she walked into my shop, she had it. And she had figured out that the woman her husband had been seeing was my wife. And she made a decision that I will respect for the rest of my life. She decided that the other betrayed person deserved to know, and deserved to walk in with his eyes open instead of getting blindsided in a courtroom. I did not open the folder right there. I asked her to give me a minute, and I poured us both a coffee out of the pot I keep for customers. And we stood in my shop, and we talked like two people standing at the edge of the same hole. She told me a little of her own story, standing there, and it is the part that made me trust her. She said she had felt it for almost a year before she had a single piece of proof. The same face-down phone, the same late nights with clean explanations. She said the worst part was not the suspicion. It was doubting her own mind, lying awake asking herself if she was a jealous, broken woman inventing monsters in a marriage that was fine. She said the day she finally found the second phone in her husband's truck, the day the monster turned out to be real, she felt something she was ashamed of. She felt relief. Relief that she was not crazy. I told her I understood that better than she knew, because I had spent a spring calling myself paranoid for noticing the truth. Two people, 2 towns apart, each one apologizing to a liar in their own head for the crime of paying attention. She could have buried all of it. That is what I keep coming back to. She had a comfortable life, a business, 2 kids, a house with a porch. The easy thing, the thing most people do, would have been to quietly protect all of that and let me stay in the dark. Because my knowing did nothing for her. Instead, she did the harder, decent thing. She found the other person getting lied to, and she handed him a folder and a fighting chance. I have met a lot of people in 30 years of crawling under other people's houses. I can count on one hand the ones who would do what Diane did. Here is the first thing she said that I held on to. She said, "Do not confront them. Not yet. The second they know we know, everything we have stops being useful, and they start covering tracks and getting their own stories straight." She had a lawyer, a good one, and the first thing that lawyer had told her was the same thing I would hear a week later from mine, almost word for word. And it is the thing I most want you to take from this whole story, if you take anything. Do not explode. Get quiet and get organized. So that is what I did. And I am going to walk you through exactly how, because I know some of you are sitting where I was sitting, and you deserve to know there is a way through that does not cost you your kids, your house, or your good name. I went and saw a lawyer. Not the guy who did my granddad's will, a real divorce attorney, 2 towns over. A woman who had been doing this for 25 years and had a way of talking that made the floor stop tilting. I laid it all out. The phone, the open houses, the hotel charge, the cologne, the folder I had finally opened at my kitchen table at 1 in the morning after the kids were asleep. I will tell you what was in the folder in a second. First, I want to tell you what my lawyer told me, because it is the spine of everything that came after. She told me Missouri is not a state where they just cut everything in half and walk away. She said the court divides things in a way the law calls fair, and that fair is not the same as equal, and that what each person did during the marriage is part of the math. She said if one spouse takes money that belongs to both of you and spends it on an affair, the court has a name for that, and it does not look kindly on it. She told me to gather every statement, every charge, every dollar that had quietly walked out the door over the last 2 years, and to put it in order, and to not say one word about it to anyone. Then she asked me about the building, the shop. I told her my granddad built it, my dad ran it, and the deed had never had anyone but a Renner on it. I told her I had owned it free and clear before I ever met Lana. She got very quiet. The good kind of quiet. The kind I get at a job site right before I tell a homeowner I found it. She said, "Do not transfer that. Do not borrow against it. Do not put one marital dollar of improvement into it that you cannot document. And bring me every paper that proves it was yours before the wedding and stayed yours after." She said the same about the house, which my grandmother had left me, in my name, the year before Lana and I got married. I want to be careful here. I am not a lawyer, and I am not telling you the law for your state. Because every state is its own animal, and you need your own attorney for your own life. What I am telling you is my story, in my town, with my facts. But I will say this. My wife spent 2 years thinking she was going to walk away with half of a house and half of a shop her family never built. And she was wrong about both. And she did not find that out until it was far too late to do anything about it. Now, the folder. Inside it were the ordinary, terrible things. Dates and places, lined up by a woman who used to keep her husband's open house calendar and slowly realized the appointments did not add up. Photographs that were not graphic, just 2 people in a parking lot who stood too close, and a man's hand where a colleague's hand does not go. A receipt, a booking, the boring evidence of a thing that had stopped being boring to me about 18 hours earlier. And one more thing, a burner. Diane had found a second phone in her husband's truck, and on it were messages, and some of those messages were to my wife, and one of them was about my daughter. About a weekend they were planning, the 2 of them, when I would be at a plumbing convention in Kansas City. They were planning to spend it together. And in that thread, my wife had written that she would tell our daughter she was taking her to look at colleges, and that our daughter would cover for her. Because our daughter, she wrote, already knew and was, quote, cool about it. I am going to be straight with you. The affair, I could hold. Men have survived being betrayed by a wife since the beginning of time. But reading that my wife had pulled my 15-year-old daughter into the lie, had made my own child into a little soldier in her secret, had asked her to look me in the eye and cover for her mother. That is the moment I gripped the edge of my kitchen sink until my knuckles went white, and the cold of the steel was the only thing keeping me upright. I want to tell you what I did with that, because it is the hinge of the whole story. The next morning, I did not say a word to my daughter about what I knew. I made her eggs, I asked about her chemistry test, and quietly, gently, over the following days, I made sure she understood, without ever telling her what I had read, that she would never get in trouble in my house for telling the truth, and that no adult, not one, gets to ask her to lie to her own father and call it love. I never put the secret on her. A 15-year-old should not have to choose between her parents, and she was not going to learn the truth from me using her like a weapon. I let her be a kid. That cost me something, holding all of it alone while protecting her from the weight of it. But it is the one thing in this entire story I am proudest of. Then I went to work building the case. I hired a private investigator, on my lawyer's advice and through her, so that everything he found would be the kind of thing a court could actually use. He worked in public places only. No tricks, no breaking in, nothing I would be ashamed to read out loud. He just sat in parking lots that anyone can park in and photographed 2 adults walking into the same door. And he timed it. And he wrote it all down in a careful hand. Within 3 weeks, he had built a record that matched Diane's folder so perfectly that the 2 of them together told a story no jury and no judge could squint past. I pulled every bank statement for 2 years. I sat at the shop after closing with a yellow pad, and I found every dollar. The hotels. A weekend in Branson I was never on. Gifts from stores that do not sell anything a man wears. A line of small cash withdrawals on the days the open houses ran late. Almost $11,000, when I added it all up. Of money that belonged to both of us, spent on a man who was somebody else's husband. My lawyer looked at that yellow pad, and she smiled a small, grim smile, and she said, "This is the part of the case that pays for your kids' braces." I put GPS in, nothing of hers, because my lawyer told me not to, and because I did not need to. The P, I had the streets. The bank had the rest. I have spent 30 years learning that you do not need to tear out the whole wall if you know exactly where the pipe runs. I had one bad scare in the middle of all this, and I will tell you about it because it is the kind of thing that trips a man up. One evening I had 2 years of bank statements spread across the shop's back desk, sorted into piles, and I lost track of the hour. Lana called the shop line to say she was on her way to drop off my reading glasses I had left at home. I had maybe 4 minutes. I have never moved paper so fast in my life. I had it all in a job folder and back in the truck's lockbox before her headlights hit the lot. And when she walked in, I was running a snake down a demo drain like it was the most natural thing in the world. She handed me my glasses. She kissed my cheek. She said, "You work too hard." And I smiled and said, "Somebody has to." After that, I never brought a single page home or to the shop again. My lawyer kept the originals. I kept nothing where it could be found. Keep your evidence somewhere your own house cannot reach. That is not paranoia. That is just good trade practice. The same as you do not leave a live wire where a kid can grab it. There is one more thing my lawyer drilled into me, and I want to pass it along because men get this wrong and it costs them everything. Do not move out of the house. Do not, no matter how much you want to sleep somewhere that does not smell like the lie. The day you pack a bag and leave, you have handed the other side a story about who walked away from the family. And you have walked away from your own kid's front door. So I stayed. I slept in my own bed next to a woman I no longer knew, and I kept my mouth shut, and I let the paper pile up where she would never look for it. It was the hardest sleeping I have ever done. It was also the smartest. And the hardest part, the part nobody warns you about, was that the whole time I was building this, I had to go home and be a husband. I had to pass the salt. I had to ask how the showing went and nod at the answer I now knew was a lie. I had to lie in the same bed as a woman who was counting down the days to a weekend with another man. And I had to keep my breathing even and my face soft, because the day she suspected I knew was the day all of it would slip through my fingers. Diane and I used to text, just the two of us, two people getting each other through it. And she told me she had become an actor she did not know she had in her. So had I. I have installed water heaters in 120-degree attics. Nothing I have ever done was harder than buttering toast for a woman across the table and saying, "Drive safe today, hun." There was a week that almost broke me. About 10 days before everything came due, Lana turned warm. Out of nowhere, she made my favorite dinner, the pot roast my grandmother used to make. She put her phone face up on the counter again, like the old days. She told me she had been thinking, that the kids were getting older, that maybe we should take a real trip, just the two of us, somewhere with a beach. She reached for my hand across the couch one night and she said, "You have always been the steady one, and I do not tell you enough." And I am a man, and I loved her for 19 years, and I sat there with her hand in mine, and I felt the whole case start to wobble. Maybe she was ending it. Maybe she had come back on her own. Maybe I could close the wall again and we could just go on. For about 3 days I let myself believe it. Then Diane texted me a photograph, her husband's burner, which she still had a way of seeing, lit up that very week with a message from my wife. The warm week, the pot roast week, the maybe a beach week. In it, my wife told the other man not to worry, that she was, quote, keeping him comfortable so he does not get suspicious before the trip. The trip with our daughter as cover. The beach was for him. The pot roast was for show. She was not coming back. She was salting the ground so I would not look up while she walked out. I want to thank Diane for that text, because it saved me from the worst mistake a betrayed man can make, which is mistaking a smokescreen for a second chance. I deleted the wobble out of my chest. I got quiet again, and I got back to work. Here is how it ended. I'm going to tell it plain, because the plain telling is the one that is true. My lawyer and Diane's lawyer, it turned out, knew each other. Two professionals who had figured out their clients were tangled in the same knot. They did not collude, nothing improper, but they timed two filings to land on the same morning, and they picked the morning with care. The weekend my wife had planned, the one she told our daughter would be a college tour, I quietly made other plans for our daughter. Her best friend's family was going to a lake, and I asked if my girl could go along, and they were glad to have her, and she lit up. So the cover story my wife built her whole weekend on simply evaporated, and our daughter was 100 miles away, safe, swimming. 11 and 15 both out of the house and out of range of any of it. My wife drove off that Friday, believing she was meeting her man at a resort an hour east. She had a bag packed. She kissed me at the door and told me to water her plants. I told her to drive safe. She was served at the resort, in the lobby. A process server my lawyer arranged was waiting, because we knew where she would be, because the PI had the reservation and Diane had the thread. At nearly the same hour, an hour east of there, the man named Trent was served too, by his own wife's attorney, in a hotel that he had booked under his own name, like a man who never once imagined he would be caught. I was not there. I did not want to watch it. I have never needed to see a face break to know a job is done. I was at the shop, with the door locked and the lights low, doing the books like it was any other Friday, when my phone buzzed with one word from Diane. Done. What came after was not loud either. The law is rarely loud. It is paper, and it is slow, and it grinds in one direction. Because the money was documented, dollar by dollar on a yellow pad, the court treated the $11,000 the way my lawyer said it would, as marital money spent on something that was not the marriage, and that came back to me in the division. Because the building had only ever had my family's name on it, and I had never borrowed against it or papered it into anything joint, the shop stayed the shop. Because my grandmother's house had been mine before the wedding, and I had kept the line clean, the house stayed in my name. My wife had spent 2 years dreaming about half of everything my family built, and she walked away with a fair share of what we built together, which was real, and not 1 inch of what she did not. And the kids, this is the part I care about most. Because I had never used my daughter as a pawn, because I had protected her instead of recruiting her, because I had kept a calm and steady home through the worst of it, the arrangement landed where it should. The kids' main home is with me. Their mother sees them, and I have never once spoken a cruel word about her in front of them. And I never will, because they did not betray anybody. And they get to keep loving their mom without me poisoning it. My daughter told me, months later, that she had known something was wrong and had been scared to say it. I told her she never had to carry that it was never her job. And I watched a 15-year-old's shoulders come down for the first time in a year. My son took longer. He was 11. And 11 does not understand division of assets. It understands that mom is not at breakfast anymore. There were some hard nights. There was a night he asked me if it was his fault because he had the fever that one time, and I had to sit on the floor of his room and hold him and tell him, over and over, that grown-ups make grown-up choices, and none of it, not one piece of it, was ever about him. I told him the only thing he ever did was be a good kid with a temperature, and that I would take 1,000 more of those nights without thinking twice. He believed me, eventually. Kids do, if you stay steady long enough. Staying steady is the whole job. It is the only job that ever really mattered. The man, Trent, lost more than I did, in a way. His wife had been his business partner, and the brokerage had been built on her name and her people, and when it all came apart, she kept the part that was hers, and he was left standing in a half-empty office. My wife, last I heard, found out that the man she blew up her family for was not nearly as steady on bad ground as the man she had at home. He did not stand by her when it got hard. He rarely does. That is its own kind of justice. And I did not have to lift a finger to make it happen. The arrogant tend to humble themselves, if you are patient enough to let them. She called me, once, about 4 months after the papers were final. She had heard the shop was doing well. She had heard I had hired 2 new guys. She said maybe we had given up too soon. She said the kids needed both of us under one roof. She said she had made a mistake. I let her finish. I have learned that you let the water run all the way out before you read the meter. And then I told her, with no heat in it at all, that I wished her well, that the kids loved her and always would, and that our marriage had been over since the night she taught our daughter how to lie for her. And I said good night, and I hung up the phone, and I went and read my son a chapter of the book we were on. And I slept like a man who had finally fixed the leak. I think about that folder on my counter sometimes. A stranger lined it up square with the edge of my steel and told me to ask my wife a question. And I want you to understand that the folder did not save me. The folder was just water on the floor. What saved me was the woman who carried it, who could have buried her own pain to keep her comfortable life, and instead chose to give another decent person the truth and a fighting chance. Diane and I are not anything to each other, before anyone asks. We are just two people who got handed the same flood and chose to bail each other's boats. I sent her a Christmas card. I always will. Here is what I have left for you, and then I will let you go. Slab leaks are the cruel ones in my trade. There is no puddle. There is no drip you can point to. Everything in front of you looks bone dry, and the only thing telling the truth is the meter, turning quietly in the dark while you sleep. A marriage can be a slab leak too, and if you ever find yourself standing in a dry-looking house with a meter that will not stop spinning, do not tear out every wall in a rage. Get still. Find the line. Document the run. And when you finally open it up, make sure you are the one holding the wrench and not the one underwater. If the person who memorized your whole schedule ever decides to use it against you, they have the cleanest shot in the world. You cannot always stop that, but you can keep your head, keep your hands clean, and let the truth and the law do the heavy lifting. It will keep you out of trouble, and it will let you look your kids in the eye for the rest of your life. Take care of yourselves, and tell me where you are watching from. I read them all.